It seemed clear to Schwab that this similarity between male transsexual brains and female brains could prove important in defining gender identity.
I think if we look to the entire set of data, it's clear that we are not born neutral, that there are sex differences present already very early in development.
Schwab's work with transsexual brains is controversial, in part because it has not yet been replicated. But some of his earlier work, showing sex differences between the brains of males and females, has been confirmed. But the significance of these findings remains to be seen.
This established sex difference in the brain is an anatomical difference, and quite frankly, no one knows what it means in terms of behavior. It might well have something to do with the different kinds of physiology involved with the productions of sperm versus the production of eggs. There's no evidence that it has to do with behavior per se, which doesn't mean to say there might not be some evidence in the future, but at the moment no one really knows what that little group of cells does.
With the evidence incomplete, many in the medical community continued to view the nature-nurture debate through the lens John Money had provided. But this wasn't good enough for Milton Diamond. Distrustful of Money's research, Diamond was determined to find out the truth about Brenda.
I found it very difficult to get information on the twins' case. John Money kept saying he couldn't say any more because of privacy involved. There were no reports coming from anywhere else. I had tried letter writing to professionals that I thought that might have some input, or putting an ad in professional journals, and nobody responded.
Ultimately, Milton Diamond's efforts paid off. After 20 years, he finally tracked down Brenda Rimer. She was living anonymously in Winnipeg, and she was ready to speak out.
I didn't like dressing like a girl. I didn't like behaving like a girl. I didn't like acting like a girl.
Brenda Rimer, the boy who was turned into a girl, was living as a man.
Well, I wore dresses on occasion, and I never played with girl stuff. I usually got stuck with dolls or something like that for my birthday or Christmas, and I sat in the corner collecting dust, played with my brother's things. Wasn't too happy about sharing. Share with my brother, or I don't have anything.
For almost 14 years, David had lived as Brenda, and for most of that time, he had been unhappy.
During the early years, I thought we had made the right choice, that it would work out. Dr. Money kept saying it would work out, and I thought, well, he should know.
But by the time Brenda was a teenager, her life was so difficult, she had become a virtual recluse.
And I was so pitifully lonely. You know, I tried to put makeup on, but I looked like Bozo the Clown. You ever can imagine a guy trying to put makeup on himself? After a while of trying, I just gave up. I said, well, what's the sense of trying? No matter how much I put out an effort, it's never going to work. There's no way of knowing whether you're a boy or girl, because nobody tells you. You don't wake up one morning and say, "Oh, I'm a boy today." You know, it's in you. Nobody has to tell you who you are.
When Brenda was 14, her parents finally revealed her true sex at birth. Within a few months, Brenda rejected the gender that had been imposed upon her, and chose to live as a male called David.
Flies are around, sugar.
It's coming, it's a-coming.
Hey, sweetie, do you want to get together?
You want a drink?
Yeah, please.
For the last 10 years, he has been married and living with his wife and her 3 children. He has undergone surgery to have his penis reconstructed.
I felt very sad about David's story. His story is very touching. He was forced to live a life that was not his own, not of his making, not of his choice, in which he was given few options. Every time he tried to assert himself as a youngster, he was thwarted by so-called the 2 forces which are supposed to be most helpful in our lives, our parents and our physicians.
Hey, Paul, Billy, David.
Unaware of the interest in his life story, David had never considered speaking out in public.
By me not saying anything, the medical community was under the impression that my case was a success story. I was shocked when I heard that people thought that my case was a success story.
It is not known why John Money waited to report the outcome of the twins' case. To date, he has refused all interviews about the story. But in 1998, he did publish a list of reasons why Brenda's reassignment might have failed. He suggested that the surgery at 22 months might have been performed too late, that having an identical twin brother could have heightened Brenda's sense of being different, and that the trauma caused to the parents by the entire event adversely affected Brenda's development.
I think that John Money's reasons for why the case might have failed are potentially legitimate reasons. On the other hand, they clearly are excuses that were offered up years later, and they take on that look especially because he was not forthcoming with what happened.
Many of us were completely in the dark about, what had happened. We'd heard in the early 70s what a success this had been. Until this denouement, we had really no knowledge of how the twins were doing. And so this led to major disaffection. And what was disappointing in all of this, in more than disappointing, what hurt a lot of us is that there'd been no word that this wasn't working out the way it had been first suggested. We'd been let down by somebody who we respected.
Despite David Rimer's tragic experience, John Money's theories still influence the treatment of children born with ambiguous genitalia. Today, most surgeons would no longer attempt to change the sex of a boy born with normal genitals. But some boys born with very small or unformed penises are still